Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the June 9th regular meeting of the Lynbrook Board of Education. As always, if we could all please stand, we will lead with the salute to the flag. Mr. Yeager.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Terry. All are present. I have a motion to accept the minutes of the May 5th, 2021 regular meeting. Mrs. Danino, second. Mr. Yeager, may I have a motion to accept the minutes of the May 18th, 2021 special meeting. Mrs. Marcus, second. Mr. Pileski. At this time, Dr. Burek will handle some student presentations.
Good evening. The June meeting is always...
There you go.
Good evening. June is always a very special meeting here in the Lynbrook schools. We always have some presentations. This year we have this June we have quite a few presentations. I am first proud to say that the art of handwriting has not died here in Lynbrook. So Lynbrook is one of the few districts that does still do cursive writing as part of its curriculum. And each year, it's always nice that we seem to have winners of a state competition that's run by Zaina Bloza National Handwriting Contest. It's actually a national contest. And I have students in 2 of our elementary schools who have earned the distinction of having the best manuscript or cursive handwriting amongst their peers in their grade level. So tonight I'd like to recognize on grade 2 Allison Wong from Marion Street and grade 3 Ethan Spells from Marion Street. Hold on 1 minute, and then from Waverly Park we have Nathaniel Kim from grade 4 and Ariana Lanzello from grade 5. I would like to ask all those students to please come up and we'll take a picture. Who wants to come?
Oh. Rob, you want to go? Rob, why don't you go, Rob?
Okay. And now I'm actually very proud to recognize our girls swim team. Happens to be a very bright swim team apparently. And this year we had 3 students who received academic All-American honors. And they're all 3 girl swimmers: Erin Quinlan, Emily Bergen, and Mackenzie Danino.
We, the Lynbrook Girls Varsity Swim Team, would like to present to the Board of Education and Lynbrook High School our sportsmanship plaque. We are proud to accept this award from the Nassau County Girls Swim Association. This honor is only given to one team out of 31 teams from the referees in Nassau County. Dr. Burek, will you please accept our award?
Thank you. Good luck. Thank you. And they truly deserve this, because when I go to the swim meets and I see the routines that Coach does with the girls and how they support each other and how they enter in before a swim meet, it's truly a wonderful ritual, so to speak, that they do before every single meet, and they truly do deserve that sportsmanship award because they really do support each other so well. So thank you, Coach. We appreciate that, and congratulations. And boys are not to be outdone either this evening. We have one of our boys soccer players who has made it to the all-state boys soccer team for this season. So that's an amazing thing to make it to the state team. So I have senior Luigi Prosperi here in the designation and was named to the New York State boys soccer all-state team as a member of the boys varsity soccer team and is only one of the 7 players to earn this distinction in all of Nassau County. Luigi is the first Lynbrook High School male soccer player to earn this distinction since the award's inception. Luigi led all players in Conference 5-6 with 11 goals on the season and ranked tied for 4th in scoring county-wide. He was named Conference Player of the Year and earned all county honors as well. He will also represent Lynbrook in the Nassau County Exceptional Seniors All-Star Game on June 14th, Monday, and he will continue his soccer career at LIU Post on the men's soccer team. Congratulations. He was coming. Is Luigi not here? Okay. I thought he was coming. We'll get that shirt to him. Okay. And this evening, we also recognize our staff, certain staff members who have gone above and beyond in an award that we have come to know as You Go the Distance. What I'd first like to say is during this COVID year, I have to give a shout out to the entire staff of the Lynbrook Public Schools. A little over a year ago, when the pandemic started, we didn't know what was on the horizon, and everyone came in September and worked together, and through the rough patches in the beginning and all the extra cleaning routines and all the extra responsibilities, I'd have to say everyone has really gone above and beyond to try to make this year a good school year for our kids in the best possible way. So I need to first thank everyone for doing that. So that's why this year, the You Go the Distance, we're actually taking a different turn. It's nothing related to COVID or anything like that. It's people who have done great things, even maybe been unsung heroes. So the first person I'd like to recognize is Peter Maish. Did I say that right, Peter? Yeah. Okay. You can stand, Peter. Peter has been a member of the Waverly community for just 3 short years. However, his contributions and kindness have been felt by all. Since his arrival, he leaves our youngest learners messages on their board to read and respond to each day. So Peter works at night. So when everybody's home, he goes around the classroom and he writes messages, and then the next day the kids come in and they look forward to reading his messages. During the springtime, he looks to beautify our school community by donating flowers, which can be found on the wood display he constructed at Waverly's front door. Most recently, he was instrumental when our retiring art teacher, Mrs. Henderson, mentioned she would like to update the 9/11 garden, a special place at Waverly, before she leaves. Peter sought and secured a donation of brand-new fence and paint valued at $500 from Home Depot, where he is also a part-time employee. This act of kindness will lay the foundation for a legacy project and the 9/11 Learning Garden for years to come. Thank you, Peter, for all of your kindness and dedication.
How many are watching? How many people watching? How many?
Okay. Also from Waverly Park, Mrs. Margaret Michelle has been a dedicated and valued member of the Waverly Park school community and the Lynbrook School District for over 20 years. As a Lynbrook resident and employee, she attends every single Board of Education meeting because she is entirely dedicated to our community. She is a vital part of the Waverly Park main office and family. For the past 2 years, it has proved to be no easy feat, but she has single-handedly managed the main office for these last 2 years. So what people don't know is we had a very hard time finding a secretary to fill the other seat. So Margaret was the only secretary for 2 years. She meticulously balanced her tasks and responded to spontaneous needs as they arose. They are very fortunate to work with her. They value the work she does every day, and we all thank you for that hard work and that dedication. And Margaret, morning, noon, and night, she can be found at Waverly Park at 8 o'clock at night, still working to try to get all the work done. You're really irreplaceable. So Margaret, probably long overdue. Congratulations, you go the distance. Okay, and this last one was actually, it came in very late. Many of you may have heard that a couple of weeks ago, one of our students was actually involved in a very serious car accident right in front of Lynbrook High School. And this is after Nassau County put in safety improvements at the fork in the road. Perhaps there's nothing greater than the life of a child, and in order to protect the life of a child, we take that very seriously, and we rely on everyone who's employed in the district to have a role in that. On that particular day, our security guard in front of the high school was alert enough and saw what was taking place and probably saved the life of this child, because I've looked at the videotape, and if he did not stop the car when he did, it could have probably been more tragic. The girl, fortunately, is okay, but it could have been a lot worse. And as a superintendent who never wants to have to go through losing another student in the school district, I personally need to thank Bob Milione, our security guard, and I'm going to just get through this, for helping to save the life of that child. Now, prior to this evening, we actually held a tenure reception because that's why tonight is so special. We have quite a few people who have met the requirements for earning tenure in the Lynbrook schools, and I'm going to ask Mr. Belmont to recognize them.
He took away all my thunder. So there are a couple of milestones that are very meaningful in the life of a teacher, and tenure is a very special time. You know, it's a time where they're highly scrutinized and watched and observed, and they get to show us that they're Lynbrook material, so it really is a very special time. So tonight we have several that we're going to recognize. If I call your name, when I call your name, please stand up. Special Education at West End, Michelle Vagata. Congratulations. Waverly Park School Media Specialist, Megan Sigley. Marion Street Special Education, Diane Intrabartola. North Middle Mathematics, Meredith Deese. Special Education North, Shadon Thesis. School Media Specialist at North, Kelly Napolitano. Special Education at the high school, Kathleen Scorsia. And it's always special when we have one of our Lynbrook students who graduates, comes back, and ends up getting tenure. South Mathematics, Justin Randazzo. And finally, this last teacher who came very close to jeopardizing their tenure by trying to outbid me yesterday on my daughter's birdhouse for the National Art Honor Society. Luckily, he finally relinquished it to me at the end, not after driving up the price very high. At the high school for business, Dr. T.
I think we should, is that it?
If you can all come up for a photo, please. If all those tenured teachers could please come to the front. Even Dr. T. Rob, we have other alumni tonight. I see Andrew Danino in the audience. If you could stand up and wave, that would be great. Thank you. I just realized. Paul, we don't do art gallery? Don't get nervous, Paul. God, I keep freaking out like a dress. I still have more. No, they can't handle it quick enough.
Why don't you just let people know that they're leaving, so
Why?
let the people at home know that they're leaving.
Well, I didn't officially dismiss them. I know. For those at home, we just have a few leaving the audience at this time. There'll be one of two transitions. Right, I'm dismissing them all in a minute. No, I'm going to. Sorry to see you go, Mr. Danino. Thanks for stopping by. So in addition to the tenure tonight, we also have some other opportunities for staff. We have new staff this evening. Special education teacher at Waverly Park, Catherine O'Brien. Welcome. World Languages teacher at North Middle School, James Wolf. Welcome. Phys Ed and health teacher at North, Caroline Abate. Welcome. Phys Ed at Marion Street, Jenna Cribbins. Welcome. No one else is here, right, Mrs. Berman? No, Berman? Okay. Dr. Burek, I think you want to handle the...
Did you do Mrs. Murray, the principal?
I was told to hand it over to you.
Okay, all right. He's handing it over to me.
I was told to hand it over to you.
Okay, also this evening, we appointed her at the night of the budget vote in order to get a transition started, but tonight we're doing the formal introduction of our new principal at West End Elementary School, Mrs. Murray. Would you please stand? We are pleased to introduce Mrs. Murray as the new principal of West End. She has been an educator and a leader for the past 14 years. She comes to us from PS 169 in Bayside, where she is currently the assistant principal. Her background in general education, special education, and as a mentor teacher, master teacher, and assistant principal give her the unique understanding of the many dimensions of education and educational leadership. Mrs. Murray received her Bachelor of Science in Elementary and Special Education and a Master of Education and Literacy from St. Bonaventure University and her School Building Leader Certificate from Queens College. We are very happy to welcome Mrs. Murray to the Lynbrook School District.
Also at this time, Dr. Burek, as has all our staff, has done an excellent job through what has been a very difficult year. And unfortunately, many times when you have staff that do a great job, you don't always get the opportunity to recognize them. Luckily, Dr. Burek has had 2 opportunities this year. Now, I just want to take a moment to congratulate her for being chosen as a Nassau Association of School Technologists Award recipient for her innovation, ability to seamlessly integrate technology, and exemplary technology leadership. She will be honored at a virtual ceremony on June 17th. Additionally, she was also honored as a community hero for being a role model by Assemblyman Griffin at our ceremony earlier this year. So congratulations on that, Dr. Barrick. It's nice to know your efforts are being recognized. Do have one more presentation on tonight, which is somewhat bittersweet. Rob Paskoff, this is the last meeting, right? So after 15 years, and I believe I came on 1 year after Rob, and he has been extremely devoted to Lynbrook and to our school system. He has been a fierce advocate for all the students and a dedicated fiscal watchdog for us, and he has served our community very well. Now, there's a great deal of paperwork that we have, a great deal of reading that we all have to do, and it can be very, very tenuous at times and difficult to go through and exhausting. And the one thing Rob has always stayed on was his point of view. He never shied off your point of view. You stood by your views. Whether they were popular or not popular, you thought it was important to represent those interests, and you continue to do that. So for the 14 years I've been on the board with you, I greatly respect you, and I appreciated having that time with you. So get to enjoy whatever comes next. But thank you, Rob. And if any of the board members would like to speak.
I would just like to add that I've been on the board with Rob for 13 years, and I echo everything that Billy just said, and we will really miss you. You were, a huge asset to the district, and, thank you for your time and dedication in volunteering for this, somewhat challenging role. So you'll be missed.
Rob is a huge part of the reason that I am actually sitting here on this board. So thank you, Rob, for always being prepared, always being the fearless dissenter when one was needed. I think you, at one time or another, have always been, to everybody sitting up here, a great example as what a board member should be. And I think so many families and children and staff people have a lot to thank you for all the great work you've done. We're still going to talk to each other in the morning every once in a while on your way to work. Good luck in whatever comes next.
I just wanted to say also that I will really miss you. You're also one of the main reasons I'm on the board, but our start was a little more rocky because I was sitting in the audience at the board meetings and I stood at the microphone to yell at you at a board meeting, and it made me become very involved. But since then, we've really seen eye to eye on a lot of things, and you've opened my eyes to look at things quite differently. And I remember, I think last summer at a meeting saying to you, I'm glad I'm not married to you, but I like how sometimes you make me look at things fiscally a little differently. But I will really miss our time spent together, and we will still keep in touch.
So I came in 6 years ago, and I guess at the time that I came in, I probably would have said, yeah, the two of us are not going to get along so well. But I think you've proven that you can have difference of opinions and still respect one another and still have great discourse and be civil with one another and end up being friends. And certainly you're a super honest guy, and I totally respect that. And you go to everything, from sports to science to arts to, and you're a great leader. So best of luck for all that comes your way.
Rob, personally, I would just like to thank you for guiding me in the right direction. When I was running for school board last year, you allowed me to reach out to you and you gave me some sage advice, and it was, greatly appreciated. And I've only worked with you for the 1 year, but it's fairly obvious to me that anybody who put the time and dedication that you've put into this district over the last 15 years deserves a lot of gratitude. And I, fellow board member, and
Dr. Burek.
So, Mr. Paskoff, I'm the one up here who has worked with you your entire time up here. There's a lot I can say. I don't think I have to, but the one thing I would like to say, I remember very clearly 9 years ago, and I thank you, because I know what happened. So thank you very much. I appreciate everything.
And if this was GM, you'd be getting a gold watch. We're giving you whatever in this box, Rob.
Something to say too. So you didn't think you were going to get away without me saying something, did you? My involvement with the Lynbrook School District started 58 years ago when my parents registered me for Marion Street School. I spent 7 years at Marion Street. I was a slow learner. No, actually, Marion Street was kindergarten through 6th grade at that time. And because of that, I learned the Marion Street alma mater very well, as Mrs. Pignataro can attest to. I sang it at one of the Marion Street events, 90th, and I'm not that old, but I had a good time, and I will not sing it tonight in deference to you guys. You're very lucky. My advice to the board, keep an eye on the budget. Every little bit. I was known as Elmer, for those of you who don't know, because I questioned a glue expense at the kindergarten center one year. So because of that, I got the nickname Elmer. But it's little things like that. There's a great scene in the movie Dave, where Dave, for those of you who don't know, Dave is sort of the president, but he's not really. He's the president look-alike. And his wife wants to save a program, but it costs like $700,000 or whatever. And he goes through the budget and whittles down little nonsense to save that $700,000. So I always talk about, well, you want a new van for grounds? How can we save that money? And that's important. So every little bit counts. As was brought up earlier, I've always been a principled person. Stick to your principles. Even when I was in the minority, I always stuck to my principles, and I always stuck to what I believed in. And finally, we get dinner once a month. If you order soup, bring your own soup spoon. Thank you. Thank you guys for all the heartfelt
We're saving the money on those spoons, Rob.
Yeah. Thank you guys for everything.
At this time, we will take a quick break for those with tenure and the award recipients and any students that are left to leave. If you don't leave now, you are going to have to stay.
New hires.
New hires. Anybody whose name we called, acknowledged, recognized, can leave to celebrate. Do your homework. Except Dr. T, he better stay here.
He's gone.
I know. Moving on to report from trustees, we have a first reading of policy 0115, harassment and bullying tonight. There were copies, and there are copies available by the door. Any comments or questions from board members?
Yes, the committee met to go over these policies. There are additional policies related to this that we have tabled for later consideration in the coming months.
Thank you. Moving on, does board members have anything to report? I know Mr. Yeaker's upset that my daughter's birdhouse is painted nicer than his, but I want to publicly thank Mr. Kunz for having the birdhouses, because I know every year the National Art Honor Society has an event where they raise money for a charitable organization. I have always loved the birdhouses. I just think it's an amazing project. And I think it was difficult this year for COVID. They had to do it online with bidding and so forth. And I was scarred by Dr. T earlier, as you all know, but I just want to thank him for that. I just think it's great. The artwork by the kids, every time we talk about something our kids are doing in the arts department, it's just amazing stuff. But I always appreciate that, and I look forward to the birds visiting.
Well, I think they ended up raising, almost 2.5 times what they had set in mind. So it's really, they really did
So
a
maybe
great
the
job.
online way is not such a bad way to do it.
And I was at the, the concert, the live concert, the first live concert. That was for this meeting. That was fantastic. Great to see the kids back and singing in the orchestra and the band. And it was really a beautiful night. So congratulations to all those for pulling it off.
Seeing nothing else in the board, you have an update on the boys' score?
Oh, I'm sorry. I actually attended the Science Research Symposium. And again, I think you gotta give a shout out to those kids who, along with all the rigorous coursework and all the challenges of remote learning, still managed to do some amazing projects on everything from trees and air quality to COVID and diets and brain injuries to flies. They just cover it all, and there were a great many awards. I'm not going to attempt to list them because I'll botch it, but I'm sure it's on the district website. That senior class did an incredible amount of work, and obviously really excellent work, because they won a number of really prestigious awards. So congratulations to all of them.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson. Also want to congratulate the varsity girls team that won their first playoff game this evening. And I'm not really into sports, but Mrs. Hanson asked for an update, and the Islanders are winning 1-0. At this time, we're going to move on to new business. We're going to close the regular meeting in order to hold a public hearing on our district safety plan. Dr. Lynch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Belmont. So for those of you who are regular watchers of the board meetings, this is, in the words of Yogi Berra, deja vu all over again. So we had a public hearing on the district safety plan back in February because there was a modification to the last year's plan that we had to make. Tonight is the public hearing for next year's plan. So this is when we normally do it. So there's a requirement of law that we present to the committee, to the entire public, what's going on with the safety plan. That will be tonight, and so we will take a look at that. Kayla, if you have the slides up. I don't know. Thank you. Okay, so if we could advance to the next slide. So what is the annual safety plan? So we have a health and safety committee. That's most important job every year is to look at safety, both at the building level and at the district level. And we're constantly reevaluating policies and procedures. That work is then presented at an annual public hearing. That is tonight. And what are we really doing with this plan? We're establishing building incident command structure. So that is really very important when something happens at the district. The first responders need to know who's in charge. So at the building level, it becomes by office the principal. But if the principal's at a conference, there literally is a 5-deep layer of incident command. Same thing happens at the district, where the incident commander by law is Dr. Burek. She appoints me, or the board will appoint me as that person, as her designee in the August board meeting. And then we have an incident command structure that goes on from there. So, we had an incident in one of the schools the other day, and I was thinking of this presentation. The first responder looked at me and Mrs. Postman, and we were sitting in the kindergarten center, and he said, "Who are you?" I shut up because I'm nobody at that point. Mrs. Postman's running the show. We have to know who that incident command chain is. We need to know who that incident command chain is. So that's probably the most important thing that this plan does. It delineates that. What else do we do? We're constantly, and I think Mr. Belmont as a member of the committee will talk about this also. We're constantly evaluating the training and the drills at the school level. We go around the table, lessons learned. We're updating things. When we see something that that didn't quite work in the last drill, we need to amend it. That's going on at that committee meeting. We are anticipating, hazards and threats that may be happening outside of the school, that are things where we need to change. And then one of the new things, we had to establish a plan for the pandemic action, which we certainly put into place this year. And then, as part of the district safety plan, there are these building level plans. So mirroring the district safety committee, there are individual building safety committees, and each of them meet multiple times a year, and they are literally looking at the nitty-gritty. What doors do we use to evacuate? What do we do if an active shooter comes in? What do we do if someone has a medical emergency? They are constantly drilling that at the building level, bringing that feedback to the building committee, and then they update the plan. What's very important here is that those building level plans, even the members of this Board of Education may not see those plans. The only people who are actually authorized to view that plan are first responders. If you think why, the district level plan is a lot of philosophy. The building level plans lets bad guys know where we are vulnerable. So we don't share that with anybody, and I would say we have great people in this district that just don't divulge that type of stuff. And I always say that to the new people early, when at New Teach, all these people tonight that we appointed, we'll meet them in August, and I say, do me a favor, even if you live in this community and you're at a barbecue, don't tell them stuff, because you don't know who really you don't know who you're talking to. And I would say in this community, people are very conscious of that. So that's kind of what's happening at the district level and the building levels. Then if you could advance the next slide, Kayla. Just to give you a quick idea of who are the district safety committee members, it's expansive. It's 32 members. A member of the Board of Education is there. All of the superintendent of schools and all of her assistants are there. All the school principals are there. All the directors are there. We have representation now of every bargaining unit, from teachers and clerical and custodial and the teachers, aides and assistants and the monitors. We are very fortunate in this community. We could not possibly have better buy-in from law enforcement. So both Lynbrook Police and 4th Precinct are active members of that committee. We have relationships with these people, so they're not just badges to us, they're named people. So when a principal has a problem, they call their POP officer, they get a response. Those relationships are forged at this committee level. We have representatives of the PTA. When appropriate, mostly at the district level, we have a student representative. We have a consultant from BOCES, and then we also have our insurance carrier is there. So that's who's at the table. Next slide, please, Kayla. We did have to do some updates regarding the safety plan this year. I just went over this in February, so I'll just go through it quickly. Basically, it was establishing a pandemic plan, and we are drilling that every day pretty much because we're living it. That is what's going on there. So let's go to the next slide, and we'll just take a little look at where we're at. This is you'll hear me talk about this all the time. This is required by law. So there are certain benchmarks we have to hit by law, and I'd like to go through with you right now. So the District Health and Safety Plan last Friday approved that timeline, approved that plan, and presented it and approved it so that I may present it tonight to the community. At the July meeting, the draft of the plan will be accepted by this board as a draft plan, at which point I'm going to publish it on the district website, and then the public can review it in draft form and send me any comments. Barring any comments, the board will then adopt the safety plan officially at the August meeting. They will then appoint the district safety committee at that same meeting. When all of that is adopted, we then give the plan to the state of New York and the state police on September the 1st. We give it to Lynbrook Police on September 1st. We give it to the 4th Precinct on September 1st so that they have our most current plans. Same thing, and then there's a portal that the principals love this. They have to go into a little portal and import this all up to the state by October the 1st. Next slide, Kayla. So just as a little preview, this is not tonight, but this will be in July. Under the district website, under the district tab, under health and safety, there will be the official draft, basically what I'm presenting tonight. The board then gets to read the plan. We publish the plan. If you have any comments, I don't want to say it's completely interesting reading, but I think we definitely pointed the PTA to it at one point. And they read it, and you'll learn a lot by reading that plan. You'll really know if you have any concerns that we do think about these things. And just to give this district a lot of credit, we're known throughout Nassau County as taking safety very seriously. BOCES frequently points to us as, quote unquote, a district that's doing it right. And it's because we're constantly thinking about it. And I thank the principals, I thank the members of the Health and Safety Committee, and everyone involved for taking it so seriously. So if there are any questions from members of the board, Mrs. Hanson?
It was mentioned earlier when giving out the awards that we have had another traffic incident right outside the building. I believe this marks the 4th student to have been involved in some kind of an incident with a car since I got on the board. I know, I'm not sure it would even fall within the
It was
confines of
discussed
this
at
plan.
the Safety, it was discussed, it was a
Okay,
topic.
I mean, many parents, and I don't know if the other board members have had this, but a lot of people reached out to me like, what can we do about this really tricky spot? And we had improvements made, I mean, just made. And this arguably was much more serious than the previous one. Any thoughts? About the next step of
You all
what
see
we
me
could do?
sometimes I get a little heated at this stage, so I'm going to take a deep breath first. So here are a couple of things that I would like to recommend. Students and teachers and anyone who uses those crosswalks, the County of Nassau has installed safety lights. Press the button. When you press the button, lights start flashing. That is the first alert. And as a person who drives there every single morning, this is where I'm going to get a little excited. Slow down.
Yeah.
It's a school. Know where you are. It's nice that there's a pizza parlor there. I'm getting a little upset here, Doctor, but people have to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Like, just think that you're in front of a school. And I would beg the community to do that. But we have the safety lights, and those safety lights, by the way, are just a couple of other thoughts. When those safety lights are on, you are by law required to stop. Don't slow down, stop, and let whoever is in that crosswalk pass. And you shouldn't be creeping up on the person, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. You need to come to a full stop. And we did have thoughts from law enforcement. They can't be there all the time, but they'll be enforcing that.
Could the lights be, could we have a steady flashing light from, say, 7 to 8:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday?
Yeah. You know what? I think when you have something steady like that, people just ignore it.
Okay.
Yep.
And I think that not enough people, one of the dangers is that kids just cross even when the lights are on, they don't look. And I think they really have to double check because people don't know that law, Paul. And I think when the flashing lights, it's a yellow light. If it was a red light, it would be a different story. But being that it's a yellow light, people sort of say,
There's also the problem that cars coming from Sunrise Highway have a blind curve. So if you're not familiar with the area, where I believe that driver was, you're not knowing there's a school there because there's not enough notification early enough on when they pass that. Now, Hewitt Harbor has just installed speed bumps in their village because of the fact that and that's just purely residential, they were to do it. So, Mayor, now how much of that area is Nassau County and how much of it is Lynbrook? That can control.
Well, that whole project was a Nassau County project.
Nassau County.
Because some of the areas that they do now, they're actually putting in, instead of having the lines on the street, they actually put up the plastic posts so that you see them all along, anything that's in the roadway that does it. So we may have to go back
And that was years coming, by the way, to get what's there was
yeah,
years
it's there,
coming.
but obviously it's something then again that the community can continue to contact the Nassau County legislators and let them know that this issue is going on. I think we've learned in the last week that there's a lot of changes we want the school districts to do, but the bottom line is that those in control of the county are the ones that have the best opportunity to do that. Mrs. Dinino?
Has it ever been discussed, like those removable plastic speed bumps there on school days?
That is all, what Mr. Belmont's indicating,
Yeah.
that is all in control of the County of Nassau. So that's, they would be the ones that would be legally allowed and would be authorized to do that. But yeah, that is something that, if that is something, that PTA or whomever would want to get on to start to lobby the county, that would be a...
Yeah, that sounds like something that wouldn't be there possibly permanently in the summer or, weekends, but I think there's removable speed bumps.
Kayla, are you up top? Can you switch us from the slides back to the board?
Oh.
Thank you. But again, so many things we want to be able to do as a school district, but the bottom line is people who are elected as our officials who are in the best position. Nassau County is the one that came out and did this, and as Dr. Lynch said, that was years in the project. There's other things they can do to secure that, especially because the problem is it's a very blind curve when you come off of Sunrise Highway. If you're not familiar with this area, the last thing you're expecting when you veer right is to come up on a school. I'll just reinforce what you said, Dr. Lynch. I had been on the safety committee even prior to being on the board as a community member, and it really is an excellent job that you and the staff and our principals all do, and especially the relationship with law enforcement. So whether it's the issue with the kids roaming in the streets or the kids on the bicycles or safety issues, it's a great working relationship, and I think that's why you have the reputation you have with BOCES, so it's appreciated.
Thank you.
Anything else from the, anybody from the community that would like to address this issue, solely this issue? We will have time to have public conversation afterwards, but if anybody wants to address the safety plan issue, you can come up to the board now. Seeing that there are no questions, we're going to close this and move on to our regular meeting. Dr. Burak, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. So our reopening task force, Phase 5, just began meeting, and we've had a total of 3 meetings between the original meeting and a subcommittee, and we have another one planned. And just as we were having these discussions, and I think most of the people will be pleased to hear some of the consensus items that Dr. Belekas is going to share soon, but more conflicting and confusing information came out over the state. So I hope everyone realizes the frustration that every school district in New York State has with the guidelines that are imposed on us. But what we're trying to do with our task force is to get the consensus so that we can share as much information that we can right now before the summer break, so that people have an idea of what September is going to look like, so that we're just waiting, and we hope it's not at the 11th hour, we're waiting for the state to come out with its guidance for September of 2021. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Belekas, because he has been chairing the subcommittees where they've had discussions both at the elementary level as well as the secondary level, because the levels are slightly different. Dr. Belekas?
Thank you, Dr. Burak. On behalf of Mr. McDermott and I, we've been co-chairing these subcommittee meetings together. I'd just like to present some of our early considerations. I know that most of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight will be subject to mandates from the outside that we cannot control. So, Kayla, if you don't mind, if we could put up the PowerPoint if it's not up yet. Sorry. Okay, thank you. The second slide, please. So what we did here is we divided all of the topics that we discussed into 2 major categories: things that we agreed upon and items that will warrant further discussion. So both subcommittees were in agreement that we should have full-time in-person learning only. So that would mean the end of the hybrid, and a remote school option would only be offered if it is mandated. So like I said before, almost all the statements that I'm making right now are open to external mandates that we may need to change. We are planning on bringing back the furniture that was taken out of the classrooms and returning the rooms to pre-pandemic configurations. What that means is the return of small group instruction, which I think many people were missing this year. You know, we did have a lot of teacher-led discussions from the front of the classroom, which is not the way that we've been teaching in the past. So I think people are very excited to have their kidney-shaped tables and such in the back of the room returned to them. That would also allow us to bring back our push-in services. So at the elementary level in particular, we do push in reading services, math lab services, and such. And those services that were location-based, meaning your science labs, those that had art class in their classroom, we could return them back into the science lab, back into the art room where all the equipment is. So I think that's something, again, that most folks on the committee were excited for that opportunity. Also, too, the Voyager program would then return to West End School, and the Flight School program as well would be pushing into all of the classrooms. The shared equipment, we had really, in the beginning of the pandemic, when we did not understand fully the spread, we were discouraging folks from sharing equipment. Equipment can be shared in all of our venues. If let's say something like a microscope is being used and children will both be putting their foreheads on it, we will be leaving wipes around to wipe the equipment in between for certain things like that. But in the physical education classes, when everybody's touching the same ball, that will be allowed again. The new LMSs, so the LMSs, for those that don't understand the acronyms, that's the learning management system. So if you have a younger child in grades K through 3, that was Seesaw. And those that have students between grades 4 and 12, that was Schoology. We will be continuing to use them and being able to pivot if there is a time that we need to move fully remote in a classroom or in a building or throughout the district. We would be still familiar with that LMS and be able to use that for all of the extra perks that each of them brought to the table for us. And also too, because we did this as a pandemic measure as opposed to more of a thoroughly thought out rollout, we did only scratch the surface, especially with the Schoology. We will be looking at using new features and other things to enhance students' experiences. The transportation guidelines will follow whatever's current at that time. That really probably will be something more mandated from the outside. Attendance will be returned to normal, which means that if you wanted to be marked in present, you need to come to school. The only students who will have opportunities to work from the outside at all would be the ones that are officially quarantined. So to be present at school, you will have to be present in the building. The access to the lockers and the closets, we will be opening up the lockers and closets again. So if you're a secondary student, your locker will be returned to you. We will try to space the kids as best we can. And the closets in the elementary school and their cubbies in the back can be used again. Kayla, if we can flip to the next slide, please. Hallways, we are going to try to return to our normal bell schedule, so the hallways will become two-way traffic again. We will try to convince children to stay to the right and keep it moving. We don't want people clustering in the hallways, and we want to make sure that they're as clear as possible. So that is something that we will be pushing next year. We will be allowing field trips again. They'll go through the same procedures that we have in the past, that they need to be approved actually through my office. So we will look at the nature of the trip before we approve it. Obviously, we would be favoring venues where we have more privacy or outdoor venues, those type of things, as opposed to more crowded settings, at least to start. Volunteers in the buildings, we will be letting volunteers come back in. Again, trying to keep the crowd control. We may limit the numbers, but those will be discussions between the volunteers and their building principals. As far as outside usage, we will be opening our buildings right away to the student organizations that use our buildings, such as the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, the CYO program. So we will be opening them up for our student usage. As far as adult usage is concerned, in particular the adult education program, we will revisit that mid-year. So we would not be having a fall semester, but we will look at bringing back the adult education program for that spring semester. As far as the barriers are concerned, which is sitting in front of me right now, they will be removed, and we will be returning to our typical cleaning protocols. That was actually one of the things that's going to allow the outside organizations to come in if we're not having to fog the rooms and such. It allows that time to be available now to these outside organizations. There are some really good hygiene things that have come out during the pandemic that we're not really ready to part with yet. So since the portable sinks are in the hallway and they're not harming anybody, and I don't think anybody on the committee was opposed to their children washing their hands more often, we will be leaving those in the hallway for the children that want to take advantage of them. Obviously, depending on location, some were more used than others, but we were all in agreement that that's not a bad thing. We will also be leaving hand sanitizers around for the students who want to sanitize that way. The zip slips. So the health questionnaires, unless we're told again that we have to, we're going to be discontinuing their use. The mask wearing, as Dr. Burek had alluded to before, there was some confusion about that, from the State Department. Again, if we are allowed, we will be making the mask wearing optional. So if a student chooses to wear a mask, that'll be up to them. If they choose not to, we would be willing to allow that, again, if the outside mandates allow that to occur. Contact tracing and testing and social distancing, again, we will follow mandates, but unless they're mandated, that is not something that we're terribly interested in pushing around here. One of the biggest concerns, actually, from the committee members is please stop quarantining healthy children. So I think that is one of the concerns, and we're going to try to see what we can do there. Obviously, if a child is sick, we should be keeping them home. But if a child's not sick, to whatever extent possible, we're going to try to keep them in school. So these are all things, like I said, there'll be some outside influences on, and we'll probably have to revisit once those outside influences come into play. Kayla, if we can go to the next slide, please. So on the next slide here, these are the areas that we really didn't come to full consensus on yet, and I think we will be discussing. We have actually another meeting scheduled with the whole committee for June 21st. So once we bring everybody back in the same room, we can talk about how we're going to handle these things. Both levels of the committee weren't necessarily in full agreement exactly how to work these areas. Those areas, or how to instruct the students who are on quarantine, what we should do with early drop-off in particular. That was the hot topic in the arrival and dismissal. We had some varying opinions there. And again, at lunch, same thing. We had some various opinions on how the lunchtime should be handled, and spacing and shifts and those type of things, which I think we need to iron out a little bit more. The big caveat on everything, Kayla, if we can go to the last slide, please, was that every recommendation we're making right now is subject to change. We need to be prepared to pivot as necessary based on the conditions or state mandates. We need to be ready. And I think that based on our experiences this year, if something does occur and we need to pull back, and I know that these are dangerous words, but I think we need to use some common sense. If we do see spikes and things that we hadn't seen in the past, we have to be ready to react to those. So thank you, Dr. Burek.
So, Dr. Valekis, like you said, we could have plans in place, and maybe Friday at 3 o'clock, the governor can change everything we're doing. So, based upon what you say is up for consideration, what are some of the conversations as to why lunch or early dismissal doesn't revert back to whatever we were doing pre-COVID?
Some of the discussion, I guess I'll start with lunch here. Some people were more comfortable than others about students sitting shoulder to shoulder. And in certain instances, and I know that this is something that the physical education teachers were in particular most interested in, they want the students to return back to their lunch spaces. Right now we have gymnasiums being used as lunchrooms. If you go outside, you walk down the hallway, you'll see that some of the gym spaces here and in each of our schools are being used as extra additional cafeteria spaces. So in order to give back to gymnasiums, bring back our physical education program to what it once was, we need to bring the kids back shoulder to shoulder. For the most part, most people were in agreement that that's okay to do moving forward, but I think it warrants a little bit more discussion.
But if you're talking about September and the argument's being made not to go back to pre-COVID, if you're not going to do, those that are making that argument or that reluctant to, if not in September, then when?
I think that we are going to be there, to be honest with you. Like I said, I think that people were just wanted a little bit more discussion on that, and also, too, because there were various opinions. What Dr. Burek had said earlier, we only had one meeting as a whole committee, then we had subcommittee discussions. Because these things weren't 100% unanimous, like almost everything on that other list was 100% unanimous, that we should probably let the two subcommittees hear each other's opinions and at least be able to discuss that before we make it a 100% official recommendation. So
right.
again,
let's reiterate, those are recommendations, but the final decision rests with this board as to what procedures and policies we'll put in place.
Yes, these committees are always advisory, so they're not making a final decision.
And we appreciate those efforts, but obviously the hard work that's been going on, what our goal is to get as close to, if possible, notwithstanding the obstacles created by the government, to get ourselves back to where we were pre-COVID, notwithstanding anything beneficial that we might have learned through COVID. There may have been things we learned from an academic standpoint or an instructional standpoint that you as the academic experts may say, hey, irrespective of COVID, let's do that. My concern is finding out that we're going to have government regulation that all of a sudden we're going to have a cold outbreak or a flu outbreak, and then all of a sudden Albany's going to come here and dictate to us that we have to wear masks to make sure we don't have kids out there again. So that's my concern, because the committees have worked hard, the administration has worked hard, and what took place last week is extremely frustrating. For those that paid attention to Massapequa, and I know all the board members were, to have an announcement made at Friday at 3 o'clock about something that's going to take place on Monday that never took place made no sense whatsoever. whatsoever. And so my concern is making sure that we position ourselves to be able to move forward what we think is in the best interest of our kids so we can get going in September and not have our administration, our principals, and our staff scrambling around. I think we did an excellent job jumping on this in the beginning of COVID, but right now we're getting to that point where it's the end of it. I mean, Mrs. Marcus and I were talking about the fact that maybe we should have a conversation and explain to the community what's going on. But Dr. Lynch, how many people are watching right now?
25.
So 25 people are watching, and I appreciate those in the audience that are here that want to address this issue, and you'll have your opportunity to address the board. But what's frustrating for boards across Long Island, and I was speaking to a whole bunch, including Massapequa, who took that opportunity to go without masks and got bit, because as soon as Massapequa made that, and we got inundated with emails, right? People were emailing me and other board members and Dr. Burke, go without your mask, go without your mask. I'd love to go without the mask. And the minute Massapequa did it, King Cuomo called them up directly and said, if you don't put the mask policy back in place, we're going to fire your superintendent, we're going to remove your board members, and we're going to cut your funding. So the only answer for that is not people emailing us and saying, hey, do it. We don't have the control to do that. You know, what I said to Mrs. Marcus was, you know, if you ask your mom for something and she says no, there's no point in asking your brother if you can do it, because he's not the decision maker. So a lot of the things we're facing, as we have been facing, and you know, I speak for myself, Mrs. Marcus always likes me to point that out, it's extremely frustrating how King Cuomo keeps doing it, because that's where the power lies. As much as we can address it with our elected officials, there's only so much we can do. We're not going to put our staff in jeopardy of losing their jobs and losing funding because that's happening. But when it comes time in September to start figuring out who your elected officials are to vote on, that's when you have to care. You can't forget. Put out a report card identifying what they're doing on that. When you see them walking down the street, remind them of the type of things we've had to go through. We're supposed to be the end of this. And if you watch the press conference, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going. If you watch the press conference on Monday, he gets up there and he's asked, well, when can we go back to normal? And he does his giddy laugh. Hee, hee, hee. What do you think it's going to be, Dr. Zuckerman? 9 days? 12 days? What do you think, Madeline? How many days? And he's taking bets on when he's going to let us go back to being normal. Now, he said it's 70%. He says we're 1.4% away from vaccination. That's what he's holding up for. So 1.4% he predicted would be in 8 days. So in 8 days, he's supposed to lift, as he said, the major restrictions we have. How great for that, for the end of the school year, he decides to do that. Or for his daughter's wedding, whichever one comes first. I know, but that's the point. So the idea is that, you know, I appreciate the work of the committee, but the idea is if we're continuing in the direction we're going, the goal all along has been to get to September, get back to where we were pre-COVID, minus what you as education experts say, hey, you know what, board, we found a couple of things during COVID that were great, let's implement that. So I'm hoping that's what we can be.
As indicated by, I think, the applause that you just heard in the audience, that has been the general sentiment of the committee as well.
Good.
Right. And I just hope that everyone in the audience and the people watching and anyone
All
else,
25 of you.
If the word gets out, that there's a tremendous disconnect between, as Mr. Belmont says, and actually PTA has heard me say this too, between the king and those of us who are here on the front line trying to help children have a normal education. So that disconnect is really making all of our lives miserable. And the problem is, my concern with what you just said about the 8 days, and you know, I listened to that press conference, my concern is that he has a caveat for that. It's a two-world system right now. It's the world and it's schools. Yeah. So my concern is that everything's going to be restricted for everyone. So everybody in the world is going to do whatever they can, but then as soon as you step through the doors of a school, you have to be restricted. And I just cannot fathom that. So
let's follow up on
that's
that.
what, between now and September, there better be some real cohesion. Otherwise, it's going to be another nightmare.
And to say that again, Dr. Burke, and when I say about the 25 people, and people think I'm brow bashing, 31 people. Look, I got 6 more people.
That's because you got some more people watching.
Yeah, they heard we were yelling. And the only reason I say that is it's frustrating when we know this is the only place to get information. It's not on Facebook. It's not from people talking in the corner. We will tell you exactly what we're allowed to do. So 3 days from now, someone's going to email the board saying, hey, I really need you to get rid of the mask, and not pay attention to that. And understand, while he chooses to be the sole power in this state, our state representatives have the ability to impact that. Why have we not heard from any of them? No one has spoken out about anything he's done throughout COVID. Not Democrat, not Republican, no one. There's a great opportunity. Remember after the State of the Union address when the president speaks, then the other party speaks? How come the other party wasn't speaking on Monday? How come they didn't get up after he told us something on Friday, confused the entire county, threatened these people who are working, the teachers and the superintendents? Where was there an opposition voice to anything he's doing? So it's not just your school board you should be contacting. You have elected officials that are supposed to represent your interests, and you should be contacting them.
And you can call the governor's office, because I've called several times in the last few weeks, and you get someone on the phone, and they actually have a specific email address where you can email specifically related to school issues and COVID. So you can call and get someone who picks up the phone often.
And it's frustrating because you believe, whoever's listening, you believe that you may not impact it, but you really do. So all those people who are emailing us and yelling at us when they come up to us and not yelling at us meanly, just being passionate about your position, where will that passion be in November when it's time to elect your state representative? Where will that passion be? You're going to forget about it, you're going to carry it with you, and find someone who we can elect to put in office that cares about our interests, that has a like-minded way, so you don't run into another person from Long Island who hates living here, who has to sell their house and move away because of the mindset of what's going on.
Just to offset that for a second, I have a couple of comments. One is, and I forgot to mention this during my little retirement speech, but one of the things I'm most proud of on the board in 15 years was the fact that this year, popular or not, we masked up. We had barriers that there's no proof that it does anything, but we masked up and we did the right thing, and there was not one known case of in-school transmission, and I think that's a big thing, and I thank everybody on the board and administration for.
Well, Rob, don't say that lightly, because we were inundated, Dr. Burek and I and other board members, people hounding us on Friday and all weekend saying, get rid of the mask, get rid of the mask. And it wasn't easy to say we can't do it. But every time that came up throughout the year, Dr. Burek and the administration and the board stood strong about what the right thing to do was. It may not have been what we wanted to do, but again, all that would have happened with poor Massapequa and was the Sage and the other ones that did that was the same thing. So it's frustrating for us, but it's important for as many people that can listen and hear is the only decisions we can make are ones that we're given discretion on, and they're very few and far between what's dictated to us.
And just another positive thing for the masks, I read an article the other day that there are 2 strains of flu that they feel have been wiped out because of mask usage this year. But that's besides the point. The other thing is, make sure you get vaccinated. It's the easiest thing to do, and it's the easiest way to go into a new school year with a good outlook on that. And make sure your kids get vaccinated when it's available by age.
So if I can just piggyback off that, just a reminder, everyone, the Mount Sinai Vaxmobile is coming to Lynbrook High School on Monday. It'll be in the parking lot. Monday, June 14th, between 3 and 6. They actually reached out to me today. Very few people made appointments. So I hope that they feel it's worthwhile to come. But if you have not, please consider making a reservation. They'll take walk-ins. So if you decide last minute, but please show up and get vaccinated if you're interested.
Finally, the only other thing I have to say, we spent a lot of money on these barriers. I understand we have barriers coming next year too, because we ordered them before we knew what was happening. I'm wondering if the art department and the tech department
next year's project, Yeaker,
can make good use. Next year's project. How about for the next 5 years project?
Yeah, we got enough of them.
But maybe we can make use of the materials.
Well, the way the economy is going, we could probably sell that because you can't buy wood now anyway. Maybe plexiglass will be the same. Dr. Burek?
Can you just want to mention one thing, but we're talking about barriers, that the town of Hempstead did ultimately wind up through a FEMA grant reimbursing us for the majority of the expenses on this. So I do think that when government works, we should give them a shout out. And I think Supervisor Clavin and those crew that went to bat for us in Washington D.C. We spent about $175,000 on these, and $150,000 of it was reimbursed through the town of Hempstead. So thank you, town of Hempstead.
And just so I'm not totally cynical, Clavin was also the one last year who enabled Ellen and our sons to have a graduation. We were told we couldn't gather somewhere. He got up, found us a location. We had a great graduation with everybody we wanted to attend.
So maybe we can give them one of the plexiglass birdhouses.
I think every kid's going to get one.
And just piggybacking on the thank yous, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to all the folks that have participated in all 5 of these task force. You know, there's been many people that have given up many hours, you know, both staff and parents and students, actually. So I do thank everybody for their participation.
Okay.
Oh, I feel so much better going off on him. Yes, Dr. Burek.
Okay, moving on. Between the federal and the state government, now that we've just trashed them, they have provided...
No, not all of them. There's some great people in state government. There's one particular, the king.
There has been an infusion of additional funding for schools to help with the return to school, to help with any learning loss, to help with mental health support. So the money comes in 3 different packages, so to speak. One is dealing with the additional foundation aid that Dr. Lynch is going to speak to, and 2 others come in the form of grants, which are above and beyond the title grants that we normally get from the federal government anyway. So what we have to do is we had to provide a plan of how we were going to spend that money. We will have to submit that plan to the state and the feds for approval. But what we have to do is post it on our website. So after Dr. Lynch and Dr. Belekas speak to the plans now, it will be posted on the website, and there will be an email on the website, and you can find it under the budget and finance link on our website. There will be an email that if you have any questions pertaining to how we're using the funding, you can do that, and then we'll be able to submit the plans, and then it'll be subject to approval by the state and the federal government. So I'm going to turn it over to, who would like to? Let's do Dr. Lynch first, the foundation, because the foundation aid was part of our budget package that you've already heard a little bit about.
So thank you very much, Dr. Burek. So the foundation aid, as you who have been following the meetings are aware, we get a state aid package coming towards us, and that is approximately $11 million. So when we began this budget process for the new year, we were under the threat of a 20% reduction in state aid. So that we gave marching orders to the principals and the directors to come in with razor thin, if not lower than average increases to 0 or less, was their marching orders. And our goal was to preserve essential programs and to add where we had to add. At the same time, unfortunately, when you're threatened with that type of cut, we had to have a whole bunch of other cuts prepared in the background just in case doomsday happened. Those were 2 things that were happening at once. Then the other thing, and to give congratulations to this board, the other thing that I think this board was conscious of is this community and specific members of this community are hurting. There are specific members of this community who are unemployed, underemployed, and who have lost their jobs. So to impose a full tax levy as allowed by law could really hurt some people. So to see an increase of 3% or something like that really would not be a good thing. So all of those priorities need to be balanced. And then in April, not only do we get an $11 million aid package, but they put another $1.5 million on top of it. So what that enabled this board to do is say no to nothing. They could fund everything and give a reduction in the tax levy, which came out, and you overwhelmingly as a community, at a 76% vote, I think you like the idea. So that is for the essentials of the foundation aid plan. If you want to see it in more detail, it will be up on the website.
And then Dr. Belekas?
Unfortunately, the plans that I'm going to talk about sound like alphabet soup. There are so many acronyms and letters here. As mentioned earlier by Dr. Burek, you can find all the full text and dollar amounts and expenditures online if you do go to the Budget and Finance page. Just to give you a little bit of information about each one of these. So the American Rescue Plan of 2021, it's ARPESSER. That's the Federal Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. we received approximately $1.4 million in this funding. So what we're going to be using it for, the whole purpose of this fund in particular was to deal with the impact of the pandemic. So we do know that many students suffered during the pandemic. So we are going to be introducing additional mental health, behavioral, and special education supports. So we will be increasing some staff here to help those children that need. We will also be looking at infusing more social emotional learning and character education components throughout our curricula. So each of our curricular documents are going to be looked at, and we will be taking basically a very serious look, and we'll work with some outside support at trying to add those elements. We will be supporting certain students that did struggle the most during the pandemic with extra extended learning opportunities. One of the things that you've heard about several times as the Summer Academy. So we do have students in K through 8 that are participating there, working on ELA and mathematics type activities. We are also supporting our summer high school. And we are, in addition, bringing back our ENL after school program to work with the English language learners so that they can get support with their homework, and we can also give support to their families as they try to help their students at home. Also using this money, this is something that we've had discussed a long time in the district, but really hadn't figured out the logistics. One of the things when you enter high school here, you have to wait until 10th grade to receive writing lab and health. We are going to try to make that correction and move the writing lab and health to grade 9. That would not happen in the 21-22 school year. It would actually happen the following year. So we're talking about 2022, 2023. So not next school year, the following school year, we would be moving writing lab and health to grade 9. And we do think that could really help students build up some of those prerequisite skills as they enter the high school. Logistically, we couldn't do that for next school year, but the following school year, we will be making that move. The last piece of the funding we have allocated in case it's required or mandated for a remote schooling option. So that's the first fund that I'm talking about tonight. The next two funds are kind of sort of one and the same, but they do have their own acronyms here. So in December 2020, these funds were basically put out by the federal government. We have ESSER2 and GEER2. What those are, again, it's an elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund. That's money coming to us directly from the federal government. And the second one with the GEER, that's money coming from the federal government through the governor's office. So it's Governor's Emergency Education Relief. Both of these funds are going to support some really exciting activities in the school district. First, with the ESSER 2 fund, we've received approximately $2.3 million. One of the really exciting initiatives we're going to be able to bring here is a new approach to reading. We're going to start it at the lowest level in the kindergarten and work our way through the system. And it's all going to be based on the science of reading. In the past, if a student was learning to read in the Lynbrook School District and almost every school district in the country, the approach to reading is what they call a print-to-speech approach, where you take text off of a page and you learn how to read that text and say it aloud. The English language actually is set up in the opposite direction. So the correct approach, if you really look at it from the origins of the language, is a speech-to-print approach, where the sounds that we make are then put onto a piece of paper. And it has been shown in many other countries that that speech-to-print approach really helps children with their language acquisition, and it has been shown to be far superior to the print-to-speech approach. The problem with that here is that there are not many programs that are available to have that type of approach. We have been very fortunate that we are partnering with some companies that are actually cutting edge in this area, and we are very excited to be able to bring that to the Lynbrook School District. In order to support that implementation, we are trying to do it right as to minimize the impact on our classrooms. We will be also bringing in teaching assistants to work in those classes and to help out so that when the training is going on, that there's a continuous familiarity familiar face with the students as much as possible to keep that continuity of instruction. The other piece, again, with this fund, and you'll hear this with the last fund as well, we will be leaving some monies here in case the remote schooling option is mandated. The Governor's Fund, this year we had introduced a half-time CSE chairperson, and we are going to increase that person to full-time to help out in the special education department. We know that there are many children that have suffered from the pandemic and are also being evaluated, and this person will make sure that we're not backlogged on our evaluations and getting the proper supports out to the buildings. This will also allow our special education director and coordinator to have more of a presence in the classrooms, which we know is vital to our students' success. So that is something that also is being funded through this Governor's Emergency Fund. The last part here, again, would be putting more monies away, again, in case we need to pay for a remote schooling option. And all of these plans, as Dr. Burek mentioned, are on the website, and they're in full, and you can take a look, and if you have any comments, please send them to the email on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lex. Anything else, Dr. Burek?
I do. Any questions from the
Oh,
board?
my God.
You good? Okay. Moving on. The other piece of state aid deals with the universal pre-K aid. We were allotted a little over $300,000, which means we now must try to, and we don't have any space in our school district, in any of our buildings, to actually house a pre-K program. So we have to find a third party to provide that service. And we have to use the state aid toward that, which gives us a certain number, a little over 60 slots that would be available for pre-K. But what we first have to do is find that third party in order to provide that service. So we're putting together an RFP. It is going to go hit the streets next week, I believe, with a bid opening of June 28th. After that bid opening and we see which organizations may respond to that bid, we'll go through it, and then we will have more information for anyone who has an entering pre-K student to see how you would benefit from that. We would have to do a lottery, because if we have a little over 60 slots, it would have to be a lottery in order to make it fair. And then the first...
So we don't have the space for it, but by law, we're obligated to find this third party and offer
Yes.
the program?
Yes.
Are we out of pocket any monies for it with the third party?
Quite possibly, yes.
Okay.
Quite possibly, yes. So here's another thing, and don't get me started. The PTA heard me today, so I apologize today, because there's one particular person I was calling out today at our meeting. So certain politicians, when they fight for this extra money for us, it's all great, but it's extra money that is yet another unfunded mandate. When I say unfunded, if it's not totally funded, to me it's unfunded because it means that the district has a responsibility. And I've spoken to this particular politician and has said, well, the district has to provide some money. Well, then don't tell me you're doing something great for me if I have to now take money. Now my K-12 program now becomes a pre-K-12 program. So those are one of the arguments that I had. So it's quite possibly, yes, that we will be contributing some money towards this program.
And by the way, you just reminded me, I followed up on, as the board members know, our elected officials were putting that bill in about requiring that we allow members to send their kids over to the BOCES program without any approval by the board. But my understanding from the New York State School Board Association is that bill is dead and it will not be pushing through.
Good.
Dr. Burek, for the pre-K, what school year is this?
It would be for next school year. Yeah, no, the RFP is for next school year.
Get it all worked out.
Well, but we have no preparation for it.
No.
So the RFP would be answered
Right.
by existing, venues
Right.
that have the space and have a program. So it was just if they have the spots. So if we have 60, we may not find a vendor who can house 60 additional pre-K students. If they have space for 10 students, then our 60 becomes 10. Because we can
whatever
only
we can work
provide
with.
the pre-K experience for where they have the openings.
Okay, thank you.
So these are essentially 60 out-of-district placements.
These are pre-K.
The pre-K. So how are they getting to their new pre-K? What's the motive?
It's parents. Parents would take
Parent
them to them.
provides
Yes, it's not,
all
we don't provide the
transportation.
transportation, right.
Okay.
Yes. It's just it's the tuition for it.
Well, because that would be another huge expense.
Yeah.
To get that.
Oh, trust me, I wouldn't put it past them that, 5 years from now, we're now responsible for transportation.
Yeah, I mean, if we had the space, it would be another story.
Correct. Okay, and then the last item is our monthly capital projects update, Dr. Lynch.
Okay, it's going to talk about a couple of projects. So the Marion Street Elevator Project is about to get underway. So if you live in that area, you may start to see some construction happening. And then the Atlantic Avenue boiler is going to start to get underway. The big news, of course, is the high school project. So if you've ridden past the front of the building, you know it's the outside is pretty much complete. And then a good sign of a good project is furniture and equipment is already starting to arrive. So we are progressing as we need to progress at this point.
At the end of the summer.
So I'm recalling a couple of years ago, North got their new boiler, and they turned on, in the summer, and they turned on their new boiler for the first time, and there was some smoke. Remember they had the smoke with the boiler?
Yes, I remember that at like 2 in the morning. Yeah, that's.
Can we sort of save ourselves that bit of drama?
And that was actually the North story. That was not the first turning on of it. That was actually, it was a fuel oil supply issue.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I was going to say, could we check that out over the summer, even though we're not going to? Okay.
That was not something we
I
could
don't-
prevent.
No, we couldn't prevent
That was not
nothing
something we could have prevented.
It was a bad
Okay.
oil delivery, is what it
Okay.
came down to.
I had a question back to the pre-K for a second. Is it required for the pre-K to be a full day?
Yes,
Even though kindergarten isn't? Oh,
correct. Yeah, it's a full-day K program.
kindergarten's not mandated full.
Correct.
Okay, just clarifying that.
It just further
That makes
exposes
no
how
sense.
everything makes sense in this state.
That's totally senseless. Okay.
Anything else, Dr. Burek?
I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Great. Anything else from the board? At this time, we will open up the microphone for speakers that want to address the board. Please identify yourself as being a resident or non-resident.
Hi, everybody.
You could turn that if you want. If it's, I mean, the podium itself, if you want
It
to
is an
face the
awkward
board.
position, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Jen Saya. I have been emailing Dr. Burek and some board members, so I appreciate all the communications that we've had thus far. I've worked in public schools as a high school guidance counselor for the past 13 years. Can I take this down as I speak, or no? Okay. As a result, I have the utmost respect for central administration.
You could take that down if it's easier.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Our Board of Education, Building Administration, and of course, our teachers. I know what it feels like for a parent to come in hot, argumentative, and combative, and in those situations, the conversation is largely unproductive. So my goal is to be none of those things, but rather than to communicate my concerns and work together in the best interest of all of our children. Truth be told, my children aren't officially Lynbrook students yet. My daughter will begin attending the kindergarten center this September. So as concerned as I am that current Lynbrook students have the option to remove their masks over the next 2 weeks, I have my sights set on September as well. As an educator and as a community member who has been nothing but excited to be a part of this school district, this is not how I envisioned my first impression would go. As I mentioned, I've emailed you all, and I do appreciate that communication very much. I also want to thank you all for, when we had that flip-flop in guidance over the past week, that you did, in fact, for a brief moment in time, give our children the option to remove their masks, regardless of vaccination status. And that, in my humble opinion, was a huge step in the right direction, only to then have that call reversed, which was ultimately deflating. It's no secret at this point in time that we are governed by a power-hungry bully, a tyrannical, egomaniac dictator, King Cuomo, who is now using our children as political pawns. Nobody is able to provide a clear answer as to why our children still have to wear masks. Nobody. A parent is only left to assume the rationale for these irrational mandates on our children are far more nefarious than the average person may want to admit. Are mandated vaccines next? Parents are left with no other choice but to consider this as the next bullet point on their agenda. I do not want my children or anybody else's child to be forced to wear a mask against their will or be forced to take an experimental vaccine with no long-term safety data. I'm here tonight to fight for the choice and power to be put back into the hands of our families and parents of our district, rather than being forced to co-parent with a corrupt government system. That said, I do not want to alienate families who still have a particular level of fear. Every person in this nightmare has their own story to tell and their own reasoning as to why they are either ready for life to return to the way it was or are still doubling up on their masks. I am well aware that there are plenty of individuals who are still fearful, and we are all coming out of this horror show at our own pace. For those who want to pursue the vaccine for themselves or their children and continue to wear masks, that is their choice, and they should have that choice. Just like it should be the choice for the families that are ready to turn the page on this to unmask our children. It is the choice and the option that I'm scared has been removed from us all, and once we lose that, we will not get it back. If masks allegedly work, and this vaccine is supposed to do what it's supposed to do, what does it matter if my child is unmasked or unvaccinated? This is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Is it possible that superintendents and boards across Long Island, across our state, can band together and push back on our governor? There is power in numbers, and I think we should feel confident to call his bluff on removing funding or shutting down schools should we not comply to his flip-flopping guidelines. If he did something so extreme as to follow through on these threats, it would ruin the once great state of New York more than he already has ruined it. Students will be pulled from their districts and homeschooled, or worse, families will be forced to move out of state to areas that are free. As I previously stated, my daughter begins kindergarten in the fall. I spoke with the nurse of the kindergarten center several weeks ago, inquiring about children who wear glasses and if children had the option of wearing a face shield, as my daughter has been able to do so in her pre-K program. As cumbersome as it was for her to wear a face shield this year, it ended up being a blessing in disguise because she could see clearly and breathe better than when wearing a mask. My daughter wears glasses, as does my son. When I put masks on both of them to go out to a store, which I do not do any longer, their glasses fog up immediately. This is a genuine concern of mine, as my child is now expected, as a kindergartner, to sit at a desk for hours at a time, attempting to learn and be educated while also being distracted because she cannot see through her glasses due to a covering on her face. Not to mention not being able to breathe appropriately or interact with her peers and teacher the way a kindergartner and every student should be able to do. This does not sit well with me, and she cannot be the only young child that is impacted by this variable. I am sick and tired of our physicians, school leaders, other adults, relatives, and friends telling me these kids don't know any better. They don't know any different. It's all normal to them. Get the mask with the wiring on the top that seals along their nose to prevent the glasses from fogging. No, no, and no again. This is not normal, and I refuse to accept this as normal for myself or my children. Some of their first and earliest memories, for my children at least, will be of them wearing masks and everybody else around them wearing masks, and it is simply unacceptable at this point in time. Please continue to rise and fight for our children. I plead with you again to reach out to our local surrounding districts, or the superintendents of Comac, Massapequa, as we've mentioned, Sachem, Pat Med, other districts that didn't make the call and stood by it only for it to be ripped away. These children no longer deserve to be caught in the crosshairs of a dangerous, money-making political game. They did not ask for this burden to bear, and shame on all of us for letting it get as far as it has. It is no longer March of 2020, and we must move forward. Please help fix it.
Hold on. So I want to answer a couple of your questions. I should just let you go because I don't want to get you worked up, but you're not going to be. But keep that passion and that energy, because I think the board has made it clear that our goal, as we said a year ago, was to get back to the point. And like you said, in September, if you want to wear a mask to school, nobody's going to tell that kid they can't do. That's what our hope is. But let me address a couple of things that you said for the 20 of us here and the 6 at home. when was it, Dr. Barrett? 12 years ago, 13 years ago, we went to a meeting at the Hewlett Administration Building, and we invited 600 school districts. And we had our local politicians there, and they just nodded at us and nodded at us as we spoke, and we asked for, what this all comes down to, by the way, is unfunded mandates. So when you're talking to someone at the bar, at the restaurant, at the movie theater, the word to them is local control. We don't care what Albany thinks. Let us decide. If you don't like what we're doing, get together with your friends, vote us out, or you'll influence us, and we'll change the budget. We could change superintendents. The power rests in our community. All we're asking is for local control. We went to this meeting in Hewlett. The politicians who were there, we had about 4 or 5 other school districts there, and at the end of the meeting, I got up and I said, listen, those politicians aren't going to care what we have to say. We have to come back next month with 3 more school districts and 6 more school districts. I was on a text thread with 8 school districts, the president of Massapequa. She was saying to us on Friday, hey, Bill, you guys got to do this too. You got to get rid of the masks too. You got to decide you're going to let your kids go. I go, we're not taking that chance. You're in Massapequa. You're crazy. So she went ahead and did that, and then 30 minutes later, she texted me back and went, oops, and they had to go back. The difficulty in getting it, you can't underestimate the apathy that people have, and that the energy that you have has to become contagious. You sat here, put a couple of hours in to have a few minutes to be spoken like that. That energy has to happen. And next time you go, you got to big 3 people.
We're trying.
And I'm telling you, when September comes, it's not just who the governor is, it's our elected officials who, again, I'll say it every time again, we've heard nothing from for the entire year. No voices in opposition. None of them coming up to us and saying, hey, we know you know what's best for Lynbrook. What's best for us may not be what's best for Rockville Center. It may not be what's best for Lawrence. Let those communities decide what they want to do. That's all we're asking for. We're asking them to allow us to be adults, to be representatives of our people who directly voted for us to make what's in the best interest of our community. That's the only thing we can hope for. But you're not going to get the superintendents to unify. They've tried doing it, doesn't work. I can't get the board presidents of the 54 of us to do that either. It has to rest with our communities showing that power to do that.
So in listening to all of you this evening, I've been very pleased with your messaging and what you've had to say. So I do acknowledge that, and I feel that you are in our corner. So I know that I came in hot, and I don't want to do that and place blame, but I feel like we are powerless unless we all work together.
United, you're not powerless. Individually, we're powerless.
And
but we're not
again,
powerless
as I
united.
mentioned, I'm new to the district in the sense that I finally have a child who will be, technically in district. So what I've learned in just trying to reach out to people in the community, that it seems a bit sleepy. People don't really want to fight right now and don't really understand what can come and what can happen come September. And there can be vaccine mandates. We know that this guy up top is evil. We're all in agreement. Well, I can't say that for sure, but it sounds like the majority of us are in agreement of where he's headed. So I don't know what else to do, so here I am. I've been told, go to your board meeting. I went to my board meeting. And I will come again as often as I need, and I will rally community members as much as I can. But people may not take me seriously because I am just stepping my toe in the water here. I'm just entering
but if
with the kindergarten student.
if everyone stands around the pool and no one steps their toe in the water, nobody ends up in the water. If one person steps their toe in the water, the second person steps their toe in the water, now everybody's inside the pool.
I
So the
also wanted to
opportunities
put a
come.
face to my name, a name to my face, whatever you say, because I know I've been emailing, and it's never an effective form of communication as far as I'm concerned. So I thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Well, can you clarify? I mean, I knew you're new to the community, so you think you were hot just now when you came up?
Well-
That just means you haven't come to enough board meetings to see what hot is.
I know that I wasn't, but I still, it's the first time that I'm speaking with, people who are very important in this district, and I don't want to put my children in a position where there's a red X on their back or that say as kids or anything like that. I know how it works. I've been in public education for a long time, and I respect it. So I just, wanted to make that point.
I just want to say something.
Yes.
One of the things we tend to forget is an invisible population. The invisible population is those that are immunocompromised or have high risks.
Okay.
And if you don't get your child vaccinated, or if I don't get vaccinated, or if I don't wear a mask, we're still exposing those kids to a deadly disease. And it's still a deadly disease. We have, in the kindergarten center and in most of the elementary schools, we have tables specifically for peanut butter.
Allergies.
And allergies. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is much, this is just as deadly, if not more deadly.
What about RSV?
RSV is a deadly disease as well.
What
but
have
it
we
affects-
done to
but it
protect our
affects-
infants and our babies, to protect them from RSV, ever?
Well, it depends. If you have a premature infant, you get a shot.
I had a premature infant.
Well, they should have gotten a shot if they.
Why is the answer always a vaccine? Why is the answer always a
Well-
vaccine? There's no long-term safety data on this vaccine. I could pull up stats right now of
You're right.
all the injuries that have been reported from this COVID vaccine. Now I'm going to inject it into my child. I don't get into a back and forth over the
Right
vaccine.
now, that's
It's
your
your
choice,
choice.
right?
You clearly are pushing the vaccine. People in this audience tonight don't want it for their children.
Well, right now, that's fine.
Okay, and once it's mandated, you're going to lose all of us.
Well-
And then you'll lose the funding, and the teachers will lose their jobs, and this district will fold.
I'm not that worried about that right
Okay,
now.
that's your position.
Right.
Okay.
We had a vaccine mandate because people weren't getting vaccinated for rubella and things, and it led to an outbreak. And since then, we've mandated vaccines in the school. It's very difficult.
50. Our students have to have 50 vaccine shots before they step foot into kindergarten, 50. I was born in 1984. I didn't have the chickenpox vaccine. I got chickenpox.
Right.
Why
And
do
you're
these
lucky.
vaccines exist?
You're lucky.
I'm lucky?
Because
I got
it
the chickenpox and
Well,
survived?
I'm not going to argue with you, but
Well, you started the argument about vaccines, so I think everybody should have the
it's my last
choice.
board meeting. I get to have fun.
Then let's have fun.
Here's the thing. We have eliminated many diseases through vaccines.
Great. Show me the long-term safety data on this vaccine, and then we could talk. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Sayegh?
Yes.
May I just say one thing? Have you reached out to Senator Kaminsky and Assemblywoman Griffin?
I have, and I
Okay.
reached out to Laura Curran. I reached out to
Yeah, Lauren Kern, what did,
I reached out to Kathleen Rice.
what did Kaminsky's office say? What did Griffin say to you?
They don't respond.
Yeah, look at
They
that.
don't respond. I have tried locally as much as I possibly can. So I don't know who, somebody mentioned it over here at one point. Numbers to call Cuomo, to call Zucker, the New York State Department of Health. I've emailed him as well. We're doing everything we can, Board of Education, superintendent, local politicians, the governor, wherever we could go, we have been. So for the people in the Lynbrook community, I speak with people all over Long Island, Comac, Syosset, Northport. We're all doing everything we can, and we're just.
But you got to
we feel
remember that in
defeated.
October, when you're doing that, or do what Murray did over there, that guy was walking all over the neighborhood. I think he went door to door from the entire district. Hopefully people will bring that same energy of going door to door, and that when it's time for our state representatives to be elected, they have to do it then too.
Yes.
I mean, we passed our budget at 79%. That's pretty, 76%.
76.
It's pretty impressive.
Well, Laura
It's
Curran-
like 10% voted. Laura Curran can.
She's up for re-election.
Lauren Curran can't make that decision. She can try to act like but she's in the same position we are when it comes to our funding. I called her office and she said, listen, the difficulty I have is I'm controlled by the state. He gets to make these rules. So she can't, unless he allows them to do it. So that's what we want. We want him to say to her, do what you want in your county. We really want him to say, do what you want in your school district. But until he says that or gives them that authority, there's not anything they can do for us.
Well, Bruce Blakeman is running, I'm sorry, up again, I didn't know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's
No,
all
I
right.
apologize.
He interrupted me, that's all
No,
right.
no,
That's all right.
please.
You
That's
can
on
finish.
me.
No.
Parents, the community, the citizens, they're the ones who get them reelected or not. They forget that I'm also a citizen, and I have a right to vote too.
Right.
But the more you can get, letter writing campaign, if they don't take your phone call, but if you inundate them with emails, if you can get a group, that they have to listen to.
The inundation is happening. It is
Okay.
happening. That I could say for sure, based on Facebook groups that the state of New York and Nassau County that I happen to be a part of, there's thousands of parents who are inundating these offices.
Okay.
So the corruption runs deep. It's scary. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Uncle Paul. My name is Peggy Lynch. I'm a mom of 3 kids, one in Marion Street, one in Kindergarten Center, and my smallest child is 2 years old. I will start off by saying I'm very appreciative of the way Lynbrook has handled the 2020-21 school year. Given the current status of the world, you guys really did everything to have some type of normalcy with the kids, and I thank you for that. And I know there's a lot of parents who feel the same way as me, so please don't take away that we think that you guys aren't doing anything, because trust me, I know you have. I'm positive that most parents would agree with that. I also want to stress that the children have been wonderful and have the teachers have been wonderful and have gone above and beyond to make this school year as fun as they could. This is my second time around with Mrs. Lampert. I love her. I really do love all your teachers, and they've done just as good as they have, 6 years ago when she had Maureen. Our kids have handled this better than most adults would have. Every morning, my 6-year-old puts on a mask well before he's asked, which makes me mad. He rides on a bus sitting by himself, sits far apart from his friends and behind the plexiglass inside his classrooms. He has not once complained, ever, except to ask me continuously, "Mom, is the coronavirus over yet?" My 8-year-old, however, knows better. She knows what it's like to sit at a table with her friends. She knows what a field day is, what special lunch is, what an ice cream sale is, what a friend's smile looks like, and she's missing it big time. My 2-year-old is approaching his 3rd birthday. He has not seen the full faces of some of his teachers. Mr. Paskoff, your wife is my son's PT, who I love and adore. I really do love her, but I'm not sure he would recognize her on the street. Currently, we are trying to teach him how to wear one so we can take a trip on the plane, which is heartbreaking to watch. And I might add, he refuses to do so, and I don't want him to. I know this year is challenging, but I'm asking you not to stop your advocating now. I realize the district hands are tied. Trust me, we all know that. We are in no shape or form telling you that you guys aren't doing it. This is just our plea to continue to do it, and we are doing as much as we can. The 25 viewers hopefully are doing what they can, and the people behind me are. And we have tons of friends who have said, it's 2 weeks, who cares? Who cares, it's another 2 weeks. But we heard 2 weeks in March of 2020. And who knows what's going to come September. And I love that opening plan. That is amazing. I love everything you put down there with this small little thing underneath that says, if we're mandated to do that, which scares me. I'm just pleading on my behalf of my kids, on our community, to not stop fighting for us, because we've done what we can do. I'm going to continue to do it. I will do it. Jenny will do it. My friends will do it. This is not on you guys. We're just asking you to continue to do whatever you can, and please just help us as much as you can. I have other stuff I was going to say, but I think Jenny said most of whatever a lot of us are feeling. When she says there's Facebook groups, there's a lot of groups who are out there who are trying to do, they'll tell us 7 different emails to do it, and people are emailing and calling, and we're not stopping. So all of our plea is to just continue to do whatever you're doing, times 10. September, we want this at least to be over. I would love if something happened the next 2 weeks. That is far-fetched, but thank you for all your time. I really do appreciate everything you do. Trust me, this has been a fantastic year, given everything that happened, and that's all.
Mrs. Lynn, I just, again, to that, I can't stress it enough, the fact remains that the phone calls and the efforts don't mean anything to them. I've been dealing with it since the days of Skelos, when we sat in his office and he said to us, don't talk about Triborough, and now the man's in jail. The issue is, the only thing they care about is being reelected. They have to know that there's real constituents out there who are going to let it be known when it comes time for their election that there's a force of voters that are out there. And we can't turn out with 10%.
Right.
You can't turn out. We have to turn out in force. And that energy has to keep going. And those Facebook pages and those connections in other communities, even if you have to keep it going once or twice a month until you build up that momentum to get all those people involved.
You're right. And I was always taught to vote. I have been voting since the second I was able to vote in every single election I can vote for. If it's the sanitation department, if it's whoever it is, it has been ingrained in me to vote no matter what, and your voice counts. And I get that, and I wish that a lot more people did, and they don't, but I hear you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In that no one else is coming up hot, we will move on with the meeting. On to reminders, our next meeting will be a short work session on June 30th at 5:30. It will be a virtual meeting. Our reorganization meeting will be Tuesday, July 6th at 6:30 in the high school gymnasium, because work is being done on the auditorium and cafeteria over the summer. We've added a few last-minute resolutions that are not reflected in the handouts, but will be part of the agenda and updated. A few appointments and an agreement with East Rockaway Schools so they could use Marion Street Field for their graduation. I'd like to ask for a consent agenda on resolutions 2106C1 through 2106C25, 2106NC1, 2106G1 through 2106G45. May I motion, please? Mr. Paskoff. Second, Mrs. Danino. All in favor? May I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Mr. Paskoff. Second, Mrs. Marcus. All in favor? This time, I'd like to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss particular matters of personnel. Mrs. Marcus, second. Mr. Yeager, thank you. Everyone stay well. Get home safe.